Hello everyone, Tim Brown. Welcome back to my Apple Podcast. For this episode, I want to review Handy Photo. It's a photo editing application for the iPhone and the iPad by ADVA Soft. Let's take a look. When you first open the application, you see there are three round blue buttons. The gallery button is for accessing photos, the camera button is for taking photos, and there's a tutorial button. The developers offer a range of tutorials, which are YouTube videos that show you how to use all the different features. So let's go ahead and import a photo from my camera roll. At the top right is a hand icon, and press on that icon and a menu of options will appear. There is tone and color, retouch, clone stamp, move me, filters, textures, magic crop, and frames. I'm going to give you a quick overview of each one. Let's start with tone and color. Press on tone and color and you will see a menu appear in the bottom left corner. First, there is the auto adjust levels. If you take your finger and run it across the surface of your photo, you'll see up at the top the name of that control and the percentage that is being added to the photo. Next to that is brightness. And likewise, you can see the name of that control and the percentage that's being added to the photo as I'm going from left to right with my finger on the surface of my photo. Same thing with contrast. Temperature, going from warm to cool. Continue to rotate the tools around and also have the option to control the saturation. Using my finger and swiping back and forth. Shadows, swiping back and forth. Highlights. And finally, sharpness. If you look at the inner circle of controls, you'll see that the adjustment tool is selected by default. You have another option to select what is called application modes. Here you actually can add gradients to your effects as well. So for example, this is a linear gradient mask, and by selecting that, a menu of options appear on the right hand side. This control, for example, enables me to control how wide I want the linear gradient to be or how narrow. Then I can relocate that gradient to where I want the effect to be applied. Now if we go back to our controls and add, say, temperature, if I go from right to left, you can see that the warmth is being added up above where I set the linear gradient. In the bottom right corner, you can hit the X to go back to your original or hit the check mark to save your changes. If you decide that you need to go back to your original image, select the clock icon in the top left and just select original. Going back to the menu at the top right, let's go to the next feature, Retouch. With Retouch, you can actually go in and remove individual elements in your photo. For example, let's just take Happy New Year I have on top of this photo. I'm going to go ahead and use the brush tool. I'm going to go in and just paint right over those letters. And what's going to happen is, when I'm done, I'm going to tap on the screen and it's going to initiate a process of erasure. And you're not going to believe it, but the words will disappear. Here we go. Tap on the surface. And now the photo is being processed. Takes a few seconds. And voila, Happy New Year has disappeared. Again, you can click the check mark to save your changes. Okay, let's return to the menu at the top right. And now let's select Clone Stamp. As you can see, the clone tool is placed right over her forehead. I'm going to go ahead and move it over up above because I'm going to copy those branches in the top right corner. This icon over here on the right in the middle, allows you to control the width of the brush by swiping back and forth with your finger on the surface of the glass or the iPad. So with the clone tool positioned in the top right corner, I'm now going to go to the left hand side and begin drawing to add those selected areas. So wherever I'm drawing, as you can see on the right hand side, I'm duplicating those areas on the left hand side. And I'm trying really hard not to go in the area where the face is, because that will be duplicated as well. Next to the clone tool is what is called a pattern tool. By using this tool, you can actually create a repetitive pattern with that same selected area. And don't worry if you made a mistake. Choose the erase tool and then go back and you can erase the areas where you added the texture. Okay, let's go back to the main menu. And now let's explore the Move Me tool. And once again, in the bottom left-hand corner, another menu of options appears. You can see a lasso tool, brush tool, and an eraser. With the brush tool selected, I'm going to go ahead and brush in the area up above that I want to copy. Essentially what I want to do is copy some of the branches and the textures and add them somewhere else. And then I'm going to go to the very bottom, and instead of cutting it, which is the third option, the last option is to just copy to a new layer, which is what I'm doing. Then I'm going to take that and move it somewhere else in the picture, like so. With that new layer selected, I can then go in and make some adjustments. For example, I can flip it around or rotate it. I can choose the next menu of options and I can actually control the opacity. And just like the other controls, I can use my finger on the screen and go back and forth to control the opacity of that copied area. I can likewise control the saturation of that copied area and the edge smoothness in case you want it to be a little smoother so that it blends better in the picture. And guess what? There are more features. Let's go back to the top menu in the top right corner. And now we're going to go from Move Me to Filters. In the bottom right corner, you'll see that there are a range of filters that you can add to your photo, including tilt shift, smart contrast, sketch, sepia, Polaroid, polarization, old photo, Lomo, ink, halftone, HDR, golden, glow, fog, and so forth. There are numerous options to choose from. Once you choose an effect, you'll see in the right-hand corner, the bottom left-hand corner, another icon will appear. This is what enables you to control the filter that you just selected. For example, with the linear gradient mask selected, I can use two fingers and place it where I want it to appear within the picture. This will determine where the fog will show up in the picture. In this case, I do not want it to appear on the face, so I'm going to stop it about right there. Again, you can either click on the X in the bottom right or the check mark to save your changes. Okay, now going back to the menu at the top right, let's move to textures. Like filters, you have a range of options to choose from as far as adding textures to your image, including wood textures, water, paper, grunge, frost and ice. And I'm going to go ahead and choose clouds. With cloud selected, you'll see I have another menu in the bottom left corner. I'm going to go ahead and select that menu. And as you can see, another menu of options appear. With the first option selected, I can select from a range of textures that appear in a menu in the top right corner, samples that are still loading at the current moment. I'm going to go to the next one, and you can see that I can flip that effect and rotate it. There's also a freehand moving scaling tool, which allows you to expand and contract the effect that you're using. You can also use two fingers to move it up and down. You can also control the lightness. Again, using my finger and going back and forth, I can make that effect light or dark. You can also control the color of your effect as well. Again, this is caused by moving your finger back and forth across the surface of the photo. You can also add a vignette to your effect as well. Moving your finger back and forth across the surface of the photo allows you to give it a vignette effect, and you can control how much of that you want to add. And then finally, the strength. You can control the strength of your effect as well. You can either select the X in the bottom right to get rid of those additions, or select the check mark to save your changes. Okay, going back to the top menu, we're going to now go to Magic Crop. With Magic Crop, you have a range of options for cropping your photo. To begin with, you can choose Portrait or Landscape mode, or you can press Free, and you have a range of aspect ratios to choose from, or you can just choose the original. You can rotate your photo, click the check mark if you're okay with the crop, and you're ready to continue with your project. Let's go back to the main menu. The last feature I want to show you, frames. Frames is a way to just add a finishing touch to your project. As you can see, there are a range of frames to choose from. Once you find a frame that you like, you go to the menu in the bottom left, and you have other adjustments as well. For example, you can begin by controlling the frame size, and you do that by using your finger to go from left to right to control how thin or wide you want that frame to be. With the next option, you can choose the color of your frame. And finally, you can use your finger to control the scale of your photo within the frame. Click the check mark when you're ready to save your final project. Go back to the main menu at the top right. Click Save. And you see you have the option to save to Facebook, Twitter. You can email or save it to your camera roll. And that's Handy Photo by ADVA Soft. It is $1.99 in the App Store. Well worth the price. I would check it out. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Malibu Podcast. You can check me out at malibupodcast.com or at youtube.com/MalibuPodcast. Thanks for checking out this episode. I hope to see you next time.